If you meet this girl, run and do not look back. I wish someone had screamed those words into my ear the night I walked into that neon-soaked bar in Pattaya. I wish the universe had given me a sign other than the humid wind and the smell of dried squid roasting on the street corner. But nobody warned me. I saw a shy smile and a pair of dark eyes that promised me the world, and I walked right into the slaughterhouse. I thought I was the predator. I thought I was the smart Australian miner with pockets full of iron ore cash and a brain sharp enough to navigate the chaos of Thailand. I was wrong. I was just another buffalo waiting for the butcher. It started 3 weeks ago. I had just flown in from Perth after a 4-week swing in the Pilbara. The red dust was still under my fingernails and my bank account was swollen with hazard pay. I was 31 years old and I felt like a king. I didn't want the loud, abrasive bars of Walking Street. I wanted something classy. I wanted to feel like an investor, not a tourist. I found a place near the beach road where the music was low and the air conditioning was cold. That is where I saw her, Kat. She was sitting on a high stool near the service station wearing a white dress that looked too pure for this city. She was 20 years old, she told me later. She didn't grab my arm. She didn't scream for a drink. She just looked at me and offered a small, hesitant smile. I sat next to her. I ordered a beer and asked her name. She spoke softly. Her English was broken but gentle. She told me she was not like the other girls. She said she was working here to save money for university. She wanted to study business in Bangkok. She wanted to be a manager. I believed in her innocence at first sight. We spent the night talking. I told her about the mines. I told her about the heat and the flies and the money. I bragged. I admit that now. I wanted her to know that I was a man of substance. I showed her the pictures of the massive trucks I drove. I showed her the gold chain around my neck. She listened with wide eyes. She touched my arm with hands that felt strong, stronger than I expected. She said her family were farmers in Isan. She said she knew what hard work was. She said she respected a man who built his own fortune. That was the hook. She fed my ego. She made me feel like a provider and a protector. By the time the bar closed, I was already planning how to save her. I paid her bar fine, not for sex, but because I wanted to take her away from that place. We went to my hotel. We sat on the balcony and watched the black ocean roll in. She told me about her dreams. She needed money for tuition. She needed money for books. It was the classic story, but the way she told it made it feel new. She didn't ask for cash directly. She just sighed and looked at the moon. I pulled out my wallet. I had a thick stack of 1,000 baht notes. I peeled off 10 of them and put them in her hand. She tried to refuse. She cried. She said she could not take my money unless she earned it. I insisted. I told her it was an investment in her future. She stayed that night. She was affectionate but modest. She had a motherly vibe that soothed the rough edges of my miner lifestyle. She rubbed my back. She organized my clothes. She made me feel like I had a home in this transient city. For the next week, we were inseparable. I rented a motorbike and we explored the coast. I bought her new clothes. I bought her a gold ring, which she promised to keep safe. She called me her heart. She called me her handsome man. But there were signs, small cracks in the porcelain that I chose to ignore because the fantasy was too good. One afternoon, we were eating spicy papaya salad at a roadside stall. Her phone buzzed on the table. She flipped it over instantly. I asked who it was. She said it was just her mother asking about the buffalo. She said the buffalo was sick and they might need to sell it. I laughed and told her not to worry. I told her I would buy her family a new buffalo if they needed one. I was joking, but she did not laugh. She looked at me with a calculation in her eyes that chilled me for a second. Then there was the conversation about insurance. We were lying in bed, and I was complaining about a pain in my lower back, a souvenir from bouncing around in a dump truck for 12 hours a day. I told her I had a premium medical emergency fund. I told her my company provided top-tier global coverage. Unlimited liability, private rooms, the works. Her eyes lit up. She asked to see the card. I showed it to her. It was a shiny plastic card with a holographic chip. She ran her thumb over the raised letters of my name. She asked if it covered accidents. I said yes. She asked if it covered illness. I said yes. She asked if it covered time off work. I explained that if a doctor signed me off, I would get paid 70% of my wage while I recovered. She went quiet. She chewed her lip. Then she leaned in close and whispered a secret. She told me she had a cousin who worked at a private clinic in Bangkok, a very exclusive place. She said her cousin was the administrator. She said that if I was tired of the mines, maybe we could work something out. She said if I went to this clinic for a checkup, her cousin could write a report saying I had a tropical fever, a report saying I needed a month of bed rest. She said I could claim the insurance money. I could get paid to stay in Thailand with her. We could live in luxury on the company's dime. My greed woke up. I prided myself on being a hard worker, but the idea of scamming the insurance company felt like a victimless crime. It felt like easy money. I looked at Kat and saw a partner in crime, a clever girl who knew how to work the system. I thought we were on the same team. I agreed. I told her to call her cousin. We decided to move to Bangkok the next day. She said we needed to be close to the clinic. She suggested we stay at a place near the river. She called it the Waterfront Suites. She said it was quiet. She said it was private. I packed my bags. I checked my medical kit. I had a slight headache that morning. I thought it was just a hangover. Kat gave me a bottle of water and told me to drink up. She said I needed to be hydrated for the journey. I drank the water. It tasted slightly bitter, but I washed it down with a mint. As we waited for the taxi, I looked at her. She was texting furiously on her phone. She looked up and caught me watching. She smiled that shy and innocent smile again. She put the phone in her purse and took my hand. She told me everything was going to be perfect. She told me we were going to be rich. I squeezed her hand and felt the strength in her fingers. I didn't know then that she was testing my grip. I didn't know she was measuring the weight of the animal she was about to slaughter. I just saw the university student, the girl who was different. We got into the taxi. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror. He looked at Kat. He said something in Thai that sounded sharp. Kat replied in a dialect I did not recognize. It was faster and harsher than the soft tones she used with me. I asked her what he said. She patted my knee. She told me he was just asking about the traffic. She told me to sleep. I closed my eyes. The headache was getting worse. The rhythm of the tires on the highway lulled me into a doze. I dreamed of easy money. I dreamed of a month in paradise with a beautiful girl and a fat insurance check. I did not know that I was already bleeding. I didn't know that the trap had already snapped shut the moment I showed her that plastic card. The city of Bangkok rose up on the horizon like a fortress of gray concrete and smog. We were heading toward the river, toward the shadows, toward the place where the easy money would turn into a nightmare. The taxi dropped us at the base of the monolith. They called it the Ghost Tower. The locals whispered that it was cursed, a monument to the financial crash that shattered the Asian economy decades ago. To me, it looked like a gold mine waiting for a shovel. Kat paid the driver. She moved with a strange urgency. She told me her uncle was the caretaker of the property. She said the legal battles were over, and the building was secretly being prepped for foreign investors. She claimed she could get me in on the ground floor before the Chinese developers swooped in. It was the kind of insider tip every FIFO worker dreams of while sweating in the Pilbara dust. One big score to end the swing forever. We approached the perimeter fence. It was rusted chain link topped with razor wire that looked like tangled fishing line. A man sat on a plastic stool in the shadows. He wore a faded security uniform that was 2 sizes too big. Kat spoke to him in rapid, sharp Thai. He glanced at me. I saw him assess my watch, my shoes, the heavy gold chain around my neck. He nodded. I slipped him 1,000 baht note. He unlocked a heavy padlock and waved us through. The air inside the structure was 10 degrees cooler and smelled of wet concrete and pigeon droppings. It was a vertical tomb. There were no elevators. We had to climb. Kat took my hand. Her grip was tight. Her palm was damp. I thought it was excitement. We ascended the raw concrete stairs. 1 flight, 2 flights, 10. My calves burned. I was fit from the mines, used to 12-hour shifts, but the humidity in Bangkok was a physical weight. It pressed against my lungs. Kat did not slow down. She seemed possessed by the climb. She kept talking about the potential. She pointed to gaping holes in the walls where luxury balconies were meant to be. She described the infinity pools and the sky bars that did not exist. I didn't see the mold or the graffiti. I saw the numbers in my head. I saw the rental yields. I saw myself retiring at 35. We reached the 43rd floor. The city spread out below us like a circuit board of orange and red lights. The wind whipped through the open structural pillars. It was dangerous. One wrong step and you would fall for 10 seconds before you hit the pavement. I walked to the edge. I felt like a king. I looked back at Kat to celebrate our future. She was not smiling. She was doubled over, clutching her stomach. Her face had turned the color of ash. I rushed to her. I asked her what was wrong. She gasped. She told me it was the pain again. She said she'd been ignoring it because she wanted to show me the tower. She fell to her knees in the dust. Her body seized up. She let out a scream that tore through the silence of the abandoned scraper. Panic is a cold bucket of water. I grabbed her shoulders. She was burning up. She vomited clear liquid onto the concrete. She told me she couldn't breathe. She told me her appendix was going to burst. I tried to lift her, but she was dead weight. She writhed in agony. I looked at the stairs, 43 floors down. I couldn't carry her fast enough. I pulled out my phone. No signal. The concrete blocked it. She grabbed my wrist. Her nails dug into my skin. She told me to help her up. She said we had to get to the clinic, not the government hospital. She said they would let her die in the hallway. She needed the specialist, the one who treated her mother. We stumbled down the stairs. It was a nightmare descent. Every step was a jolt of pain for her. I supported her weight, sweating through my shirt. It took us 30 minutes to reach the ground. The security guard watched us pass. He didn't offer to help. He just smoked his cigarette and watched the farang struggle. We hit the street. I flagged a tuk-tuk. I told the driver to drive fast. Kat gave him the name of a hospital I had never heard of. The ride was a blur of neon lights and exhaust fumes. Kat lay across my lap, whimpering. She whispered that she was scared. She whispered that she didn't want to die. I smoothed her hair. I told her I had her. I told her money was no object. I meant it. We arrived at a building in the Huai Quang district. It looked modern. Glass doors, marble lobby. A sign in English said International Medical Center. Nurses in crisp white uniforms rushed out with a wheelchair. They took her from me. They wheeled her through double doors. I tried to follow, but a stern woman behind a high desk stopped me. She asked for the insurance. I told her I didn't have Kat's papers. I told her I was her fiancé. The woman typed on a computer. She looked at me over her glasses. She said the patient required emergency exploratory surgery. She said it was likely a ruptured cyst causing internal hemorrhaging, life-threatening. She pushed a terminal toward me. She said they needed a deposit before the surgeon would scrub in. I looked at the number, 200,000 baht. I hesitated. That was $5,000. From behind the double doors, I heard Kat scream my name. It was a high, desperate sound. It broke my resolve. I remembered the card in my wallet, the medical emergency fund, the money I had saved for a rainy day in the mines. If I got crushed by a hauler, this was my lifeline. I pulled out the card. I told the woman to charge it. She swiped it. She handed me a receipt. She told me to wait. I sat in the plastic chair. The air conditioning was freezing. I watched the clock on the wall. The second hand ticked with a mechanical jerk. Tick, tick, tick. An hour passed, then two. A doctor came out. He wore green scrubs and a surgical mask. He pulled the mask down. He looked grave. He told me the surgery was complicated. There were complications. They needed to keep her in the ICU for observation. He said she was stable, but the cost had increased. He needed another 300,000 baht to cover the post-op care and the specialist medication. I felt a knot in my stomach. That was nearly everything I had in that account. He saw my hesitation. He told me that without the medication, infection was guaranteed. He said she was a beautiful girl. It would be a tragedy to lose her over money. I thought about the ghost tower. I thought about the investment. I thought about how much money we would make together. This was just a setback, a startup cost. I handed him the card again. My hand shook. He swiped it, approved. He told me to go back to my hotel and rest. She would be sleeping for 12 hours. No visitors allowed in the ICU. He told me to come back tomorrow at noon. I left the clinic. The rain had started. It was a warm, heavy downpour that soaked me to the bone. I felt drained but virtuous. I had saved her. I was the hero. I slept for 10 hours. The sleep of the dead. I woke up the next morning with a headache that throbbed behind my eyes. I dressed in fresh clothes. I bought a bouquet of orchids from a street vendor. I felt like a husband visiting his wife. I took a taxi back to the clinic in Huai Quang. I walked through the glass doors. The lobby was different. The stern woman was gone. A young girl sat at the desk, chewing gum. I asked for Kat. I gave her full Thai name, the one she had written in my notebook. The girl frowned. She typed on the keyboard. She shook her head. I told her she was admitted last night. Emergency surgery, ruptured cyst. The girl stopped chewing. She looked at me with pity. She told me they hadn't done a surgery like that in weeks. This was a cosmetic clinic. They did nose jobs and Botox. They didn't have an ICU. I felt the floor tilt. I demanded to see the doctor, the man in the green scrubs. She asked for his name. I described him. Short, glasses, mole on his chin. She laughed nervously. She said that sounded like Dr. Somchai, but he only rented a consultation room here on Tuesday nights. He wasn't a surgeon. He was a general practitioner. I slammed my hand on the desk. The orchids fell to the floor. I told her I paid 500,000 baht. I showed her the receipts. She looked at the paper. She pointed to the header. It didn't say International Medical Center. It was the name of a shell company, a merchant account for a jewelry store in Chinatown. The blood drained from my face. My legs felt like water. I ran to the back. I pushed through the double doors. There was no ICU. There was a hallway with 3 small rooms. One was empty. One had a dentist chair. The last one was a storage closet filled with boxes of saline and gauze. Kat was gone. I pulled out my phone. I dialed her number. The number you have dialed is not in service. I opened my banking app. The balance was 0. Pending transaction, 500,000 baht. I walked out of the clinic. The sun was high and brutal. The heat reflected off the pavement. I stood on the curb. I had no money for a taxi. My main savings were back in Australia, locked in term deposits I couldn't touch without a penalty I couldn't afford. The cash I had brought for the trip was in Kat's purse. She said she would hold it for safekeeping while we climbed the tower. I was stranded. I looked up at the skyline. In the distance, I could see the ghost tower. It stood there, rotting and silent. It mocked me. There was no investment, there was no uncle, there was no appendix. She had walked me up 43 flights of stairs just to make sure I was exhausted, disoriented, and flooded with adrenaline. She had staged the collapse perfectly. The doctor was an actor. The clinic was just a set. I sat down on the curb. The dirty water from the gutter rushed past my expensive sneakers. I put my head in my hands. I had been a miner, a tough guy, a man who moved earth. Now I was just another ghost in Bangkok. I closed my eyes. I could still smell her perfume. It smelled like jasmine and theft. I sat there for 20 minutes. The water soaked my jeans. The neon lights of the pharmacy across the street flickered like a dying heartbeat. I had to move. Pity was a luxury I could not afford. Pity was for men with return tickets and active bank accounts. I had neither. I stood up. My knees cracked. The rage started in my stomach. It was a cold, hard knot. It replaced the fear. I needed to know the truth. I needed to see the machinery of the trap. I walked back to the hospital. It was a 3-kilometer hike through the humidity. I didn't take a motorbike taxi. I walked to punish myself. I walked to sharpen the edge of my anger. When I arrived at the reception, the air conditioning hit me like a wall of ice. I walked to the counter. I asked about the patient in room 402. I gave her name. Kat. The nurse frowned. She tapped on her keyboard. She looked at me with confusion. She told me that the patient had been discharged 2 days ago. She told me the bill was covered fully by her personal insurance. The world tilted. 2 days ago, while I was on the phone begging my brother for a loan. While I was draining my emergency medical fund. While I was wiring $5,000 to a bank account she claimed belonged to the hospital director. She was already out. She was healthy. She was laughing. I asked for a copy of the receipt. The nurse refused. I slammed my hand on the counter. Security took a step forward. I backed down. I did not need the paper. I had the knowledge. My money didn't go to doctors. It didn't go to medicine. It went to the buffalo. It went to the village. It went to her. I walked out into the heat. I knew where she would be. We had a spot. A secret place she showed me during the first week. She called it her castle in the sky. It was the waterfront suites, the massive abandoned high-rise that loomed over the Pattaya Bay like a concrete skeleton. Construction had stopped years ago. It was a rotting tooth in the mouth of the city. I hailed a bot bus. I didn't pay when I jumped off near the port. I ran toward the shadows of the tower. There was a hole in the corrugated metal fence. I squeezed through. The smell of stale urine and wet concrete filled my nose. I began the climb. The elevators were dead shafts. I took the stairs. 10 flights, 20 flights. My lungs burned, my legs screamed. I wanted the pain. The pain made it real. I reached the 30th floor. The wind whipped through the open structure. There were no windows, just concrete pillars and the terrifying drop to the black ocean below. I saw the glow of a cigarette. She was there. She was sitting on the edge of the floor slab. Her legs dangled over the abyss. She looked like a queen surveying her kingdom of wreckage. She turned when she heard my footsteps. She did not look surprised. She did not look guilty. She smiled. It was the same shy smile she used when she told me she wanted to go to university. She asked why I was breathing so hard. She asked if I brought more money. I walked toward her. I stopped 3 meters away. The wind howled around us. I told her I went to the hospital. I told her I knew about the insurance. She shrugged. She took a drag of her cigarette. The cherry glowed bright orange in the darkness. She told me that Farang men always have money. She said if she didn't take it, another girl would. She said she did me a favor. She gave me a story. She gave me love for a month. That was worth something. She was a businesswoman. I was just a customer who stayed too long. I reached into my pocket. I felt the velvet box. The engagement ring. I had bought it the day before she went into the hospital. I had planned to propose when she recovered. I had planned to take her to Australia. I pulled the box out. Her eyes widened. For the first time, I saw a crack in her mask. Greed. Pure distilled greed. She held out her hand. She called me handsome man. She called me darling. She stood up and reached for it. I opened the box. The diamond caught the moonlight. It sparkled with a cold, mocking light. It was worth 3 months of salary. It was my future. I looked at her. I looked at the ring. I closed the box with a snap. I stepped to the edge. The ocean crashed against the rocks hundreds of feet below. It was a long way down. She screamed. She lunged at me. Her fingernails clawed at my shirt. I pulled my arm back and threw it. I watched the small black box spin into the void. It vanished into the dark. There was no splash, just the sound of the wind and her scream. She fell to her knees. She cursed me in Thai. She called me a dog. She called me a water monitor. She cried for the lost gold. She did not cry for me. I looked at her one last time. She looked small. She looked ugly. The magic was gone. The spell was broken. I turned my back on her. I walked down the 30 flights of stairs in the dark. I didn't look back. I walked until I reached the beach. The sand was cool under my shoes. The tide was coming in. I sat down on a piece of driftwood. I was empty. I had no money. I had no ring. I had no love. I reached into my back pocket. I pulled out my passport. The Australian crest was faded on the cover. It was my ticket home. It was my identity. It was the proof that I was Matthew, the miner who made good money. But Matthew was an idiot. Matthew was a victim. I did not want to be Matthew anymore. I took out my lighter. I flicked the wheel. The flame danced in the sea breeze. I held the flame to the corner of the passport. The blue cover began to bubble. The paper caught fire. I watched the orange flames eat my face. I watched the stamps from the airport turn to ash. I watched my name disappear. The heat burned my fingertips. I dropped the burning book onto the sand. I watched it curl into a black crisp. The wind blew the ashes toward the water. I stood up. I breathed in the salt air. I was nobody now. I was a ghost. I turned away from the ocean. I walked toward the city lights. I would find a job. I would find a room. I would survive. But I would never trust a smile again. If you see a man working the night shift at the dive bar in the back alleys, the one with the dead eyes and the scar on his heart, do not ask him his name. He does not have one. And if you meet a girl who smiles shyly and says she wants to go to university, run. Run and do not look back.